Oh, there we go. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to each and every one of you. It is Friday, and it is 12 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, which means we're at the end of the week. And whatever we're discussing in this live stream is true as of the making of this live stream. If things change, I am not responsible for that. And so I reserve the right to change my mind after this stream happens. Anyways, I hope that you guys had a wonderful weekend. And of course, for our last show before the weekend starts, I am super happy to be joined by all of you. Gert, how you doing? Pierre, how you doing, sir? The Good Shepherd, how you doing? I hope that all of you are well. I am currently, as I'm sitting here in front of you, Jaguar, how you doing, sir? I'm operating on 4 hours of sleep. I am dead tired. I went to bed last night. We went out for International Burger Day to this like super cool restaurant, which is like literally a hole in the wall. Like you wouldn't know that there is a restaurant there unless someone told you, because you have to walk through like a bunch of Airbnbs just to get to the restaurant. So we went there. Phenomenal food, phenomenal vibes. It's really good. Like there's this giant fireplace in the middle of the restaurant, and our table was in front of the fireplace. It was just really nice. Um, but I got home late, like really late, and then I was still awake, and so I only got to bed at like maybe just before 1 or something to that effect, and then I woke up at 5 for men's fellowship. So I am dead tired. So I wanna apologize to all of you ahead of time. I am tired. I'm very, very tired. Dylan, how you doing, sir? Devil, how you doing? Peter Pan, how you doing, sir? I'm very happy to have all of you here. The trolls better make the most of you not being on your A game. They'll still be outclassed. Well, thank you very much for the confidence that you show in me. Uh, what usually happens when I'm this tired and there's trolls, I just ban them because I get annoyed and then I can't help myself. But no, I will definitely try to deal with the trolls in the best way possible. Ismay, how you doing? Yes, Main's Fellowship is absolutely phenomenal. We've been dealing. We're getting into the stories, guys. Don't worry. I won't be keeping you guys here with my life story the whole time. But in Main's Fellowship, we've been dealing with a book called Watchfulness, which the byline of the book is rediscovering the lost art of watchfulness, or the lost theology, really, doctrine. I think it's rediscovering the lost doctrine of watchfulness. And the book is this collection of Puritans and Puritan writers, and how they viewed watchfulness, how important it is to be watchful. You have people like Goodwin in there, you have people like Bunyan in there, and it's the smallest little book. It's like this thick, right? It's like 100 and something pages, 150 maybe. But it has been the most difficult book I've ever read in my entire life. Every single chapter beats the living crap out of you. And the subsections of the chapters, you're left just sort of having to pray and having to ask God, Lord, explain to me, what am I missing? Why is this the way that it is? So it's been a phenomenal book. I think there's some references to Spurgeon, but the book deals with the Puritan writers, right? And Spurgeon, I think, came a bit later. So Spurgeon is newer in that regard, and I know that we have had books where Spurgeon featured amazingly well throughout the book. My pastor is a huge fan of Spurgeon. He has all of his sermons, and he's a massive fan of Spurgeon. But this book specifically focuses on people like Goodwin, Bunyan, Flavel, these guys, right? So the guys that sort of started the Puritan movement and at the height of the Puritan movement. The end is now. How you doing, Shanta? How you doing? CR, how you doing? DNX Soul, how you doing? So impressed with you staying true to our faith. You got this, brother. So DNX Soul, I would like to say thank you, but then second, I would like to say there is no praise that can come to me, uh, as the Bible tells us. The flesh wants only the things of the flesh. So insofar as I am capable of remaining faithful, It is only the work of God. It is only the work of the Holy Spirit. It is nothing to do with me. Um, the, the Paul says, "I am the greatest. I'm one of the greatest sinners." Right, and then 2 years later, he says, "I am the least of all the apostles." I think he starts with "I'm the least of all believers" or something like that, and then I can't remember the first quote. I'm too tired at the moment, but the second quote is "I'm the least of all the saints," and the last quote, a few years later, is "I am the greatest of all sinners." Um, and I understand exactly what Paul is saying, because the more I learn about Christ and the glory and the grace and the mercy and the love of God, the more I realize just how absolutely sinful I am. But then also, whenever I read Paul's words, I'm like, yeah, Paul's only saying that because he's never made me. If Paul made me, it would have been, I am the second greatest sinner of all time. Stefan's the worst, but then it's me, right? So luckily, Paul didn't know me, so I don't have a permanent claim in the Bible. But I would have absolutely been there if he had made me. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm always just encouraged whenever I read the Bible and I realize just how incredible the Lord is. So, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk. We'll be able to talk more faith after this, but there are a couple of stories that I wanted to share with all of you, because so NATO. I can't nap. This is but one of the bad things for me, but I've never really been able to do naps. For me, naps destroy my entire day. Like, absolutely just ruins my day. So I never nap. I will sit like this. I'll be tired until tonight when I can finally go to sleep. And then I already know how I operate. I will literally, by about 8 o'clock tonight, I will get this burst of energy as if I had just slept. And then I will just be awake until like 12 o'clock. And then I'll finally pass out. And then tomorrow I'm going to be awake again at 5 o'clock. So this is just life for me now at this point. But I definitely don't nap. I struggle. My brothers all nap. My dad naps. Every one of my family members loves napping. And then there's me. I don't do naps, because if I fall asleep, and this is genuinely true, you're supposed to take a nap for maybe at most 45 minutes to hour and a half. I will set my alarm for an hour and a half. I will wake up 4 hours later, dead. So my body doesn't like napping. Okay, so before we continue going, you guys should now know what Ronald Lamola said earlier this week. On May 27th, Ronald Lamola had this wonderful idea, and I made a video on this, so I won't be going over everything again and all the details of it. But effectively, there's a couple of things you have to know. Ronald Lamola is the minister of Durko, right? His whole job is fixing the relationship between South Africa and America. And he is the one that continues to say that, oh, we're making progress. We're close to a deal with the Americans. If you guys don't know, our diplomatic relationship with America is null and void, insofar as there is no diplomatic relationship between us and America. We have had no ambassador in America for almost a year and a half. And Rolf Meyer, who is now there, how is he going to fix this relationship between us and America when the State Department of America just posted this? FM Ronald Lamola, you blame concerns about violence and failed governance on MAGA politics. Because in his speech, he goes off about how America, or MAGA, is racist. They hate blacks and they want to kill blacks. They hate human rights and they want to kill humans, or human. He didn't add the S because apparently that, he's a very efficient man. But he basically just goes on a tirade where he calls half of all Americans racists. That's the minister that is supposed to fix our relationship with America. And they go, Ghana and Nigeria just airlifted their citizens out of your country. thousands of South Africans are fleeing to America to escape your government's left-wing policies. Unemployment still remains at 33%, while you and your corrupt government elites get rich while promoting race-based laws and chanting "kill the Boer." If caring about your own citizens is MAGA, South Africa might want to give it a try. Now, there are a couple of things here that I really want you to focus on. And Dyson Poet, thank you so much for joining the membership of YouTube. I really appreciate you, sir. Thank you for becoming a citizen of the ZA Republic. And that's not the same as the South African Republic. Is the sound dropping for everyone? Or, Shanta, is it just for you? How's the sound for you guys? Because on my end, everything looks good. YouTube can sometimes have issues with sound dropping. If that happens, Shanta, you can just reload. So that can sometimes happen. Yeah. Just check it, because from my end it looks fine, but then the internet is the internet, and that can sometimes just die. Yvette, shalom. How you doing? All right, so there's a couple of really impactful things that is said here that I want to draw your attention to. So first and foremost, unemployment still remains at 33%, while you and corrupt government elites get rich while promoting race-based laws and chanting "kill the Boer." As far as my knowledge goes, this is the first time that the State Department of America, now take note of this, Ronald Lamola is in the equivalent of the State Department in South Africa. Because this is what the State Department of America does. It deals with the international community on behalf of the State of America. DIRCO does the same thing for South Africa. You now have the State Department of America actively calling out the ANC's minister. This is, as far as I know, one of the first times or only times this has ever happened, and calling him corrupt, calling the members of the ANC, the government, corrupt. And then, of course, what isn't new is calling out race-based laws and chanting "kill the Boer." I am willing to bet good money that there is something big coming down the pipeline. America, I personally think, America has reached the end of their rope with South Africa, and there's been quite a number of people in America itself, in think tanks in America, people who have a lot of influence, people like Joshua Mercevy, for example, who they have a lot of influence with senators and with congressmen. They meet with these people all the time, and they're all now realizing what we have all sort of experienced for years now. The ANC loves to talk, and like proper communists, they love to use words in such a way that it sounds good until you think about it for like 2 seconds and you go, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why would that be a thing? Specifically here, as Joshua actually points out, it now starts to look as if the ANC is playing for time. The ANC seems to be playing the game where let's just keep going with this. Let's string the Americans along until Donald Trump is voted out of office. And when Donald Trump is out of office, then we can make a deal with the next guy that comes around. So the idea is to wait and see. This is not going to play well with the State Department of America, because in the same way that a lot of South Africans don't like when our country is being disrespected, even though our country has done nothing to earn any respect on the world stage, but in the same way that people don't like when our country is being disrespected, the world's most powerful nation does not like when you disrespect them. You might not like America, you might not think that America is a great country, but when America tells you to do something, and they then start to realize that, oh, you're just playing games here, right? You're not taking anything they're saying seriously. the Americans might be peeved enough to eventually act. And what bothers me about the actions of our government, it appears to be as if the ANC is not only waiting or hoping that Donald Trump gets voted out of office at some point, they appear to be poking the Americans harder every single day. It's like that's their favorite thing to do. Let's just poke the Americans and see how far we can push them. And America might eventually stand up and say, okay, you know what? We have a refugee program for Afrikaners and minorities in South Africa. So that's taken care of. Instead of just punishing the leaders of the country, which up until now is exactly what they've been trying to do, just punish the leaders and let everyone else sort of just do their thing. America might very soon go, okay, never mind. We're now punishing the country. And this is specifically relevant because of another story that I shared with you guys yesterday, where a top general in the US alleged that South Africa, well, he doesn't even allege, he says that they have evidence that South Africa is a hotspot for cartels, international cartels, and the money that is made from these international cartels operating here. This is the one, right? The Mexican cartels and the activity that they have in South Africa appears to be fueling terrorism around the world. So now we have a huge problem on our hands. You see, because the Americans, looking at the actions of the ANC, recognize that the ANC is merely stringing them along. Now you have US generals that, and I guarantee you this general has intelligence that he's standing on. So this isn't just empty words. He probably has intelligence reports that showcase South Africa is a hotspot for cartel behavior, and that cartel behavior is then being exported. The money there is being exported to the rest of the world in order to fuel terrorism. Look at what happened in Iran. And in large part, what happened in Iran was because of their terrorism and their sponsorships of terrorists around the world. Now look at South Africa. America could very easily manufacture this thing. And I don't mean manufacture in terms of lying about it. I mean, America could very easily take all of the components of this story, put it all together and say, okay, never mind. Clearly, there is something here, and we need to impose sanctions. Because another story that just broke, let me just see if I can find it here for you guys. There is an advocate here in South Africa that decided to go lay a claim against Cyril Ramaphosa at the FBI, which is, I mean, that is huge, right? Because, let me just see if I can find it. I'm going through all of my DA fights. I don't know where it is now. It's somewhere on my X. The story is there. But no, this is a huge advocacy group or an advocate that has now opened an official complaint at the FBI, asking the FBI to look into Phala. Now, you might say, but the FBI has nothing to do with us. They're not in South Africa. Well, this is where things get really tricky. You see, what was found on Phala was US dollars. In the United States, and in the rules of the dollar treaties, the United States dollar may not, under any circumstances, be used for terrorist or criminal activity. Ever. And yes, when you are caught in suspicious behaviors or circumstances with US dollars, the United States reserves the right to investigate that as if the crime took place on US soil. So not only is President Ramaphosa now most likely in trouble with the FBI, if the FBI wasn't already investigating Phala, they're most likely going to start now. But our ministers in our country, our government is in trouble with America consistently. And now there's reports that show that South Africa may in fact be a funder of international terrorism. Guys, if you are a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and even so slightly capable of connecting the dots, what this starts to look like is groundwork. And I'm going to use the word psyop, but I want people to understand that a psyop isn't necessarily bad, right? Devilate, how you doing, by the way? Siege, how you doing? Tabu, how you doing, sir? Blawi, how you doing? And Johan, how you doing, sir? I hope you guys are doing very, very well. A psyop isn't necessarily bad. A psyop simply means psychological operation. And you can have good psyops and you can have bad psyops. I made a video on this months ago at this point, but I'll just quickly explain it to you here. During COVID, for example, there were 2 psyops that was taking place at the same time on the population of the world. The first psyop was the psyop that tried to discredit any conversations about the lab leak, any conversations about the virus coming from China, or the Wuhan virus leak. All of that was being silenced, and the operation to silence it looked and was eventually earmarked as a psyop. In the same way, the information that the virus did come out of a lab in Wuhan and is linked to China was also a psyop. Because when you look for the markers of a psyop, both of those trains looked like a psyop, meaning there was someone that was trying to push it. So you can push the truth, which is that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, China, or you can push a lie. It is quite literally your prerogative, your choice. But a psyop is simply how you get information into the public sphere. And this is starting to look like a psyop. You have this information sort of coming out. So you have Mark, thank you so much for the 35 rand, dude. Really appreciate you. Thank you. You're far too kind. You have the information coming out about the terrorism links. Now you also have the State Department calling out the South African government for being corrupt, for being racist, for racial discrimination, as well as human rights abuses, allowing things like kill the boer, kill the farmer, which, FYI, in no other country in the world where decent people live would be an acceptable song ever. No country in the world would allow that song to be sung in their country without serious repercussions. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech, and everyone has freedom of speech, except when you incite violence. What is incitement to violence? When you say things like, kill the boer, kill the farmer, one settler, one bullet. What you are then doing is inciting violence. And that is not allowed. No other country in the world would ever allow this. So that's the groundwork number 2 that is starting to be put out there. All right. You have the links to terrorism. You have the links to racial discrimination. You have the South African government's friendships with Iran, friendships with China. And when you start to put all of these little links together, what do you end up with? You end up with a narrative. South Africa is now no longer this kooky country that is just super left-wing and communist that stands against the imperialists in America. South Africa is a criminal terrorist organization fronting as a country. Well, this changes all of the rules. America can't invade or conquer a country that is doing nothing wrong, just has its own opinions about stuff. America can invade a country that is funding terrorists and that is itself completely ridden with terrorism. That America can do. Right? And then you put into it Phala Phala. Now, I'll end with this and then we'll move on to the next story, the story that most of you are here for with Groenewald and Jordan Lewis. But you add Phala Phala into it. And I am of the belief that there is only one reason why Cyril Ramaphosa and the members of the ANC are fighting as hard as they are to keep Parliament from investigating Phala Phala. And I want to be clear again for those of you who didn't watch my video yesterday. The president was not found guilty. The independent panel did not render a guilty or innocent verdict. The president is still considered innocent for all of the crimes of Phala Phala. What the president is trying to stop is an investigation by the people into his conduct at Phala Phala. This needs to be understood. The president isn't challenging a guilty verdict. If it was true that Parliament had their investigations and Parliament came to the conclusion that Ramaphosa is guilty and must now be impeached, and the president said, I am taking you to court, it's a different story, right? Because now the president is facing real serious legal challenges that might result in him ending up in jail. So now the president does have the legal right to go to the court and say, I think this entire investigation was mishandled. This isn't what the president is doing. He's not guilty at the moment. What the president is doing is trying to stop people from being able to investigate it. What the ANC is doing is they're desperately trying to back him up. Why would they do that? There's only one reason that I can think of. Phala Phala is a viper's nest. The things that was happening on that farm, and we have Vusi Kat Maklala at the Matlanga Commission testifying under oath, as much as that matters to a criminal, that he himself was involved in driving couches to Phala Phala. For what purpose? Well, according to Vusi Kat Maklala, Phala Phala was sort of central command for all of the criminal, nefarious activities that happened around South Africa. The cartels and the gangs and the criminals, that's where they would get their marching orders. That's where the money for nefarious activities would exchange hands. What does that look like when the FBI starts to investigate it? Because then, by the way, President Cyril Ramaphosa going to the South African courts trying to block the FBI will make no difference. American dollars was found on that farm, and America is going to demand access to investigate. Why was our currency located on your farm? And then you start putting all of that together and you just realize, well, some big trouble is coming our way. I will say this again, as I've said before. Kathy, how you doing? Samon, how you doing, sir? Christine, how you doing? I don't think Cyril Ramaphosa stays until the end of the year. I genuinely don't. Even if the courts were to grant him stay, so the parliament can't continue, the pressure that is currently mounting on Cyril means that he will have to strike a deal, and his time is sort of running out on that deal, because if the FBI takes the case and they say, right, we're starting to investigate this, what deal is Ramaphosa actually going to strike with the Americans here? Because Ramaphosa will then have nothing to offer the Americans. I mean, here in South Africa, he could try and get a deal with, the EFF or the MK, try and buy them over to not vote against them. Maybe say, look, I'll blow up the GNU and I'll go into GNU with you guys and I'll give you this portfolio and this thing. Just don't vote against me. And maybe that will work because they're all as criminal as he is. But the Americans aren't going to fall for it. Because right now, the Americans are looking for any way to squeeze the living hell out of this government. So I genuinely believe there's some big stuff coming down the pipeline here. And I think by the end of this year, we're going to have a better picture of how the Americans are going to act. But of course, I'll keep you guys updated so that you all know exactly what's going to happen and when that stuff is going to happen. Anyways, what do you guys think? Just very quickly, before we move on, please tell me what you guys think. What's going to happen? How long do you guys think Cyril Ramaphosa has left? Kathy, how you doing? I'm a South African, and if anyone is rude, arrogant, and insulting, I will ignore them, have nothing to do with them. Kathy, I agree with you, although I tend to like people who are rude. Not like badly rude, but people who are just sort of honest, I prefer that. What I hate more than rudeness is fake niceness. Like, oh my goodness. You get people who, when they greet you, they just drip. It's just like, I hate that. I'd rather have someone that's a bit rude and they're just a bit of an ass, because at least then you're being honest. You're not a good guy and you're not pretending to be. So yeah, the whole MTN thing is coming to bite CR and Co in the arse. I think you're very correct here. Wheelie Wally, how you doing? Not much time left. These connections with MTN, Iran Cell, also moving forward. That's also going to bite him. I'm no supporter of the ANC and Ramaphosa, but if he goes out, who do we get? Mashatile, Mbalula, Mantashe, far worse. So Rondo, that is an interesting point, right? And I do agree with your assessment there. If Ramaphosa goes out, we are left with far worse. But what are you buying time for? Would be my question. Because you're only buying time. It's not like between now and 2029, suddenly the ANC is going to produce a far better leader, or the ANC is going to lose so much support that they won't be in the next government. That's just not going to happen. So all you're effectively saying is, don't push Ramaphosa out now. Wait until 2029 and then Ramaphosa can leave. But then you're still going to end up with Mbalula or Mashatile or Mantashe. Mantashe will never be president, but for Fikile Mbalula or Mashatile. So all you're doing is you're giving yourself, you're buying a little bit more time. Now, if you are planning on leaving the country, so you are in the process of applying for refugee status, or you're in the process of applying for immigration, and you just want the country to hold on until you get out, that I understand, right? I don't agree with it still, but I do understand that. But if you are in this country, there's one thing that we have to start accepting. This is it. It is coming. Whether it comes now or whether it comes in 3 years from now, this is it. It is coming. Anyone who thinks that South Africa isn't heading for a civil war is out of their minds. In my opinion, you're not focusing on reality. Now, what I'm excluding here is the Lord and God, stepping in and changing the hearts of the people. I don't know the ways of the Lord, and therefore I can't comment on the ways of the Lord because, well, the Lord operates unfairly. He has all the power. So if he wants to change South Africa, he can do that, and there's literally nothing that we can do about it. So when I make this analysis, I am operating on the assumption that God is allowing everything to play out the way that it plays out. So God isn't going to step in. He isn't going to change things. And that's not impossible to believe. People like to read the Old Testament, and because you're reading one after the other, people think God did all of these amazing miracles all the time. But really, if you actually go look at the amount of time that passes between big, almost supernatural miracles that take place within the Bible, there's sometimes hundreds of years between big miracles. Hundreds of years between God, stepping in and taking care of a problem. Most of the time, God operates within natural law, and things have to go a natural progression. Things have to play out in a natural way. And so, in that same vein, if we believe that God is going to let it play out because there's things that we still have to learn and ways in which we still have to grow, in 3 years' time, you're still going to end up with a terrible person. And the world, South Africa, is still going to end in civil war. And I'll actually prove to you guys that South Africa is going to end in civil war. I shared this yesterday or last night on my X. But this is a study. This is an excerpt from a book about studies that's been done by 2 psychologists. They've been looking into this and they've done meta studies. So they've taken other studies and looked at it and derived at information about it. It's Crispins, I think it's Anne Crispins and Bertram's. These are the 2 psychologists. And what they've been specifically interested in trying to identify is political ideologies, right? This is the whole this is their angle. What kind of people are drawn to what kind of ideologies? And I'll just very quickly read this to you guys. Let me be super clear. I'm reading from the top, and I'll highlight the highlighted part here. Let me be super clear. Activism per se is not narcissistic. Research suggests, however, that some forms of political activism can be particularly attractive to antagonistic narcissists. Based on their own findings, Crispins and Bertrams concluded that some political activists do not actually strive for social justice or the support of underprivileged groups or people, but rather endorse or express violence for the satisfaction of their own ego focused and anti-social needs. So that's the first. That's the first sort of highlighted area. Now, the theory itself is known as the dark ego vehicle principle. And what it states is that narcissistic and psychopathic people, so people who have tendencies towards narcissism and towards psychopathy, tend to be drawn to extreme versions of ideological activism. So things like climate change, things like LGBTQ plus, feminism, these kinds of activist methods or movements, these personalities are highly drawn towards those sorts of activism, those sorts of activities. They go on to say, this insight led Crispins and Bertrams to propose the dark ego vehicle principle. According to this principle, people with narcissistic and or psychopathic personality traits are attracted to certain ideologies and forms of political activism. They then use activism as a vehicle to satisfy their own ego-focused needs instead of actually working towards social justice and equality. The researchers conducted 4 studies showing support, and by the way, now there's been many more studies. So by the time this was written, there were 4 studies. They've done dozens of studies now, and the studies keep confirming their findings. Showing support for their principle in the realms of anti-sexual assault activism, LGBTQ plus activism, feminist activism, and environmental activism. Across all studies, they found that narcissistic personality traits such as acclaim-seeking, authoritativeness, grandiose fantasies, and a high need for exhibitionism were related to a stronger identification with these causes. So, in other words, I'll just read the last part of this, and then we can talk about it. For the LGBTQ plus study, they found that greater involvement in activism was also related to higher levels of psychopathy. The researchers argue that involvement in activism may provide opportunities for psychopaths to act sadistically, such as by publicly shaming political opponents, and also enjoy the violence they observe. That's what the psychology tells us about the left. Now I ask you guys, when you look at people like Cyril Ramaphosa or every member of the ANC, when you look at people like Julius Malema, you need to understand, from a psychological perspective, Julius Malema isn't a good guy that genuinely cares about the plight of the black man. Julius Malema's entire ideology is driven by hatred of white people, at least if this paper is to be believed. If these papers is to be believed. It's driven by hate. There's no, and right now, the aim of his hatred is white people. He doesn't care about the black suffering. He couldn't care less about whether or not black people are actually effectively rich or poor or whatever. Provided that it hurts the whites, he's happy with it. Now, what happens when the whites are finally killed off? So there's no more white people. Well, he's still, according to this at least, a psychopath and a narcissist. Right? That hasn't changed. He still hates. So what happens? Well, the communist movements throughout the world proves to us what happens. Once one group has been entirely destroyed, they start going after a new group. They keep inventing new groups to attack. Because the ideology of hate that the left fosters and that the left treasures always needs more hate. It cannot operate on any other basis. It requires more hate because that's the point, right? You're a hate merchant selling hate. So as soon as the one group is no longer an issue, the next group becomes the issue. And now you have to go after that group. And then you have to kill that group. Adolf Hitler, for example, started with the Jews. When the Jews was no longer a threat because most of them were locked up, he started going after the gypsies. And he started going after the left. And he started going after this and the right. And everyone who opposed him eventually became part of the problem. Because the ideology itself is hate. It's all it wants is to hate, right? It's the same on the left. It's the same on the right. I know there's arguments about whether or not Adolf Hitler was on the right or the left. His version of socialism, a lot of socialists will tell you, isn't actually socialism, even though it is actually socialism because the government controlled everything and the government made all decisions. That's literally what socialism is. But never mind that. Fundamentally, at its core, when you look at the future of South Africa and you envision what that's going to look like, you have to understand that there are millions of people in South Africa that are all bought into an ideology of hate. People like Peter Kriel, he doesn't care about black people. He hates white people. People like, what's her name? She blocked me. The writer that can't write. Can't remember her name now. She writes all these struggle session books consistently. Anyways, Kim Heller, she doesn't like black people. She couldn't care less about black people. She hates white people. Carl Niehaus, he hates white people. His entire thing. I proved this to you guys the other day with the Urania video. If all you cared about as a person was the dignity and the uplifting of black people, Urania should not be a problem for you. What does Urania do to you? I just need to make this clear again, guys. When is the last time you've heard someone say, I cannot wait to move to the Klein Karoo? No one wants to live there, right? It's a bloody desert. Like, no one is going there outside of being so fed up. Like, you know how bad South Africa has to be for people to go, I'll go live in the desert. It's fine. I'll go to the desert. No one wants to be there. Most people who are there are stuck there. So Urania, if all you care about is black people, Urania should never even feature on your radar. They're a small little town on the banks of the Orange River in the middle of a desert. They're paying taxes. They're not taking any money from anyone. They're not harming anyone. They're not trying to hurt anyone. There really is no reason to be angry at these people. But if the true thing is hatred of white people, then Urania bothers the living crap out of you. Because those white people aren't suffering. And that's unacceptable. We've been working damn hard to bring the suffering of white people upon their heads, and these whites think they can escape that? No, no, no. Not on our watch. You will come live here in the suffering that we create for you, because that is how much we like you. So, what happens in a country like this? I was having this conversation last night with some of the, with some of the people that was there. I should really leave this mic alone so that it doesn't keep coming off. But I was having this conversation with people last night on who was there, and let me just do this first. And the discussion ultimately that happened was. There are some things that we can argue about and disagree on and discuss and whatnot, right? And there are some things that we can even compromise on. So, for example, if you and I have various... so let's say, for example, we wanted to start a country. And I tell you, okay, fine, we'll start this country, but I want a democratic republic. And you go, okay, fine, I want a constitutional republic. I go, okay, fine. We can probably compromise on that, right? Not perfectly, but we could compromise. We could find a compromise on how we want to live, where, we won't have a full democracy, but we also won't have no democracy. So there's things that we can do to figure it out amongst ourselves, compromises. But how, for example, how can I compromise with someone like Peter Kriel? Peter Kriel wants race laws. Peter Kriel believes that it is perfectly fine for white people not to be hired purely based on the color of their skin. This is what Peter Kriel believes, right? Peter Kriel believes that, and I don't know, he's never actually said anything, but I can almost guarantee you, Peter Kriel believes in abortion. Peter Kriel believes in gay rights. Peter Kriel believes in gay marriages. All right, now we have a problem, right? Because if you say, well, I do want some race laws, my immediate thing is going to be, well, I want no race laws. And then you're going to ask me, well, how are you prepared to compromise? And I'll be like, no race laws. And he'll be like, no, all the race laws. And I'll be like, okay, well, in that case, no thanks. Or if you come at me and you say, well, what about abortion? I'm going to say no abortion ever, whatsoever, ever. Any woman that has an abortion will be tried for murder. And if she is found guilty, in other words, if she actually had an abortion, she will receive the death penalty because she's a murderer, life for a life. Any doctor that is found committing abortion will be tried for murder and actually mass murder. So if the doctor killed multiple babies, that'll be what happens, right? And the activist or the leftist will say, well, no, some abortion is fine. What if we did like up until 20 weeks? And I'll be like, no, because whether it's week 1, week 2, or 1 day, it's still murder. So there's no compromises. In that world, the world that the left in South Africa occupies and the world that the right in South Africa occupies, what compromise can possibly be found between these groups? How can I compromise with someone like Kim Heller-Rokal in the house of Peter Kriel? The answer is I can't. There is nothing that we can ever agree on. Nothing. I don't want to live with those people. And so my question, to come back to what started this conversation, what are we buying time for? If we're saying, no, Cyril Ramaphosa shouldn't leave because he's the best of a bad bunch, what are you buying time for? The inevitable is still going to happen. At some point, Mashatile is going to be the president. And then you're going to deal with those troubles. So at some point, this is the reality. This is going to happen, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is exactly why free speech is so important. When people think they can say what they want and there are no consequences, then that becomes the moment you see who they truly are. Dave, how you doing, bro? In what way? I'm going to prep the way. Hey, everyone. Sorry a bit late. Anita, how you doing? I can't compromise. Sadly, I stay in the most left DA sniffing place on earth. Hartog, Cape Town. The ANC will never have another president. All people try to buy time for obvious reasons. Yeah, but I do think that I think the time is now, and I don't mean the time is now for civil war. I think the time is I'm at a point where I'm just like, let's get on with this. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know it's coming. I may as well just have it happen, and also because I genuinely want to see this country flourish. I do want to see this country flourish. And CR, excuse me, but I'm happy that you feel the same way, right? But since I'm a dude, I'm going to be the one fighting on the front lines. Which sucks. No, it doesn't actually suck. It is what it is, right? But let's take civil war off the table. Let's imagine that something happens and South Africa never actually goes to war, right? Let's just say that things have to, because I think we can all agree there needs to be something that changes everyone's minds, right? This you will all agree on, even those of you that might not be totally convinced that civil war may come. you can all agree that unless something big happens, people aren't just going to change their minds, right? Can we agree on that? So, in that world, what needs to happen, in my opinion, is the complete and utter bankruptcy of South Africa. The South African voter, specifically the freedom fighter voters, has to learn what is communism actually like. Because their eyes aren't going to be open any other way. And I would actually argue this is the perfect time for them to learn it. And I'll explain. One of the reasons it took South Africans so long to finally get fed up with the ANC was because most of them could simply hide behind the fact that the ANC isn't progressive enough. Like, the issue is just that the ANC needs to be more progressive. But the South African public is sick and tired. The South African public is on the brink of exploding with frustration. If it happens now, right? If it happens now, what would happen is an immediate revolt from the masses, the freedom fighters that believed in the communist system. They won't give the next government 32 years. If the EFF and the MK and the ANC came into power and absolutely ruined this country as they will, those groups will vote those parties out of government within 4 years. So perhaps now is the best time to hand South Africa over to the communist forces so that the South African voter can see that this wasn't ever apartheid's fault or the fault of the white man or white monopoly capital or imperialist forces. This was always the fault of communism, because communism doesn't create, it only destroys. It is what it does. And perhaps that's the perfect time for us to learn this. Quickly want to see, because someone wrote something here. Derek, it's funny you promoting the idea of a civil war. Is that because the whites have gotten refugee status in the USA? Derek, no. I've been saying that South Africa is heading towards a civil war for a very long time. It's also quite racist of you, Derek, to assume that civil war automatically means white versus black. Why would that be your assumption? I'm going to assume, Derek, that you've never been to my channel or that you have never been to a live stream. I have always maintained that the war that is coming in this country is a war between good and evil. It's a war between the right and the left. That's the war that's coming, not black and white. It's not a race war. And people who want a race war is absolutely out of their minds. Because I mean, I've literally lost subscribers as a result of this conversation that we're having now, because there are a lot of people that want to view the world through the lens of race, right? That want to look at South Africa and say, oh, it's black and white. But I can show you, right? I can show you how the view that it is white versus black does not hold. Right? I can show you that. Kim Heller, Peter Kriel, Prince Marshall, Vusi, Sama. Who would you rather have in your camp? Kim Heller or Sama? Right? This is not race, it's mindset. It's what you think about, right? I agree, it's not a race war, but don't you think AfriForum could do better in their messaging? Derek, in what way? What is AfriForum doing wrong? Explain that. Like, what are they doing wrong? And Craig, I'm sorry to hear you say that. Why? What exactly is it about my reporting that you find not good enough? Echo, thank you so much for the 350 Rand donation, dude. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Civil war in this country means ordinary contributing South Africans against the communists, the give me's and the unproductive but entitled, and those with white guilt. This will not be Rwanda 2.0. It's not a race issue, it's ideology. Echo, absolutely in agreement with you. Like 100% in agreement with you. It is going to be ideological because I actually don't believe South Africa has a race problem. I think most people you speak to, um, most people you speak to don't hate each other, right? When you speak to most black people, they don't hate white people, they don't hate colored people, they don't hate Indian people. When you speak to most white people, they don't hate black people, colored people, Indian people. No one really hates one another based on the color of their skin. The big things that grind between all of us is ideology. There's one group of people in South Africa that believes give, 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 and give me as much as I can take. And then there's another group of people in South Africa that says, look, I'm done giving you things. I'm sick and tired of this now. And also, Derek, I just want to ask, what name calling? I never called you anything. So I'm not sure why you would ask me for a civil debate. I didn't name you. I didn't call you anything. I think the way Trump framed the genocide picture leaves a bad taste in the ANC and black people's mouth. Derek, okay, so you're blaming AfriForum for what Trump said. I would also remind you, and you could go back and actually check it. Donald Trump doesn't call it white genocide until the media in South Africa calls it white genocide. Because when Donald Trump first comes out and speaks, Donald Trump says that the South African government is discriminating against the Afrikaner people. He never uses the word genocide, not once. The media in South Africa then comes out and they immediately say Trump falsely claims white genocide. The media claims this. Trump never uses the word genocide. It's only after the media does this that Trump then starts going white genocide. But now I could actually build on this for you, right? I could actually build on this for you. So first, the argument of discrimination against white people is a non-starter. It's absolutely true. There's nothing that anyone can say that has eyes to the contrary. You have a country where there are explicit laws designed to keep white people out of the workforce. We can argue about how effective these laws are applied all day long, but that those laws exist and that is the exact thing that those laws are designed to do, that is not something that we can debate because that's literally what the law is designed to do. And when you speak to the freedom fighters, they will tell you that it is absolutely unacceptable that the rugby team is mostly white, but that the soccer team being completely black is perfectly fine. And that is how it should be, right? So that right there is discrimination against white people in South Africa, and it is state-sponsored. Now let's look at the genocide claim, and let's examine the genocide claim very carefully. So the first thing we must challenge in our own minds is, what is genocide? So most people don't actually know what genocide is. They know a word, and they know a movie that they watched once about Rwanda, Hotel Rwanda, and they think that's genocide. But that's not actually what genocide is. Genocide is a process. It's not an event, right? The event is called mass murder. The event that most people see in Hotel Rwanda, that's mass murder. But mass murder is one of the stages of genocide. And there's also multiple ways in which genocide plays out. For example, according to all official genocide documentation and studies, you can have things like political genocide, where a group of people who vote against the ruling party are consistently discriminated against and pushed out of society, and their rights are increasingly removed from within that society. It doesn't mean they're killing all of the people that vote against them. It just means that they're discriminating against a specific group of people, right? That's part of genocide. It's political genocide. You can have cultural genocide, where not a single person is killed, but a culture. So, for example, China last year passed a new law where all people in the country. Now, China has over 50 different cultures. It's not like just one country. People think of China as just Chinese people. That's not true. You have the Han, and you have the Uyghurs, and you have pretty much, you have 50 different Asian cultures that live in China. But the new law from the government, who is Han, now makes it illegal for children to learn about their own cultures, and instead every child must learn about the Han culture because they're all Han now. That's cultural genocide. The Chinese are actively engaging in cultural genocide by killing the culture of the children who are Uyghur or any of the other cultural groups. I only know the Uyghur and the Han. To be fair, I'm not an expert on Chinese local politics, but I do know there's 53 or 54 different cultures. I was actually shocked about this because I thought South Africa had a lot of cultures, and then you hear, whoa, that's an insane number of cultures in one country. Now, most of those cultures aren't as different as ours, but they're still different, right? So the Uyghurs, for example, are mostly Muslim. But that's a cultural genocide. Or you could have a thing called economic genocide, where again, you're not killing people, you're just removing their ability to participate in the economy. On all three of those levels, the ANC government is guilty of genocide. They're in the stages of it. One of the stages, for example, is the dehumanization of the people. So, for example, 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, may have been three, you have that music producer that calls white people Neanderthals, not even human. The Human Rights Commission of South Africa does absolutely nothing about it until multiple complaints are lodged. And then, and only then, do they investigate it and they order him to apologize. Nothing happens to him. He doesn't go to jail. He just needs to say sorry, which he does. He makes a post. He says he's sorry, and the case is handled. Penny Sparrow makes a tweet where she takes a picture of the beach in Durban with the caption, something about monkeys, right? Basically saying only animals would leave the beach this way. Is it a racist post? Yeah, 100%. Did she actually call black people monkeys? You could make the argument that that's what she did. Or you could just say that she was likening the actions to that of animals, right? Either way, doesn't matter. But I think we can all agree that it's very much the same as what happened with the music producer, right? He called white people not even human, right? So clearly, I'm using base case scenario here, Johannes. So I'm literally giving them as much grace as humanly possible because I also don't believe that Penny Sparrow was actually trying to be racist. I think she had a moment where she wasn't really thinking about how sensitive the South African government is about things. But even if I was like being super charitable towards them, right, you could make the argument that, okay, she was a little racist and what she said was a little racist. But in no way, shape, or form is there, if that is the standard of what racism is, then the music producer calling white people not even human, subhuman Neanderthals is just as bad, if not worse. He gets to apologize and it's over. Yeah, it's the Nota Beloy guy, but everyone knows who he is, so names doesn't really matter. But yeah, Penny Sparrow has her life destroyed. Her life is destroyed. She loses her job. She has to pay a fine of 15,000 Rand, I think. And then after she is found guilty by the Human Rights Commission and made to pay the fine, the Human Rights Commission charges her again. And this time they seek 200,000 Rand in damages from her. So her entire life is destroyed right there. She and Nota Beloy said the exact same thing in principle. One is black, the other is white. One just says sorry and he's over. The other, life destroyed. That's discrimination. That is 100% a two-tier justice system aimed at ensuring that white people pay the ultimate price. That is genocide on every single level. When you have a politician in this country singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer," literally kill white people. That's the song. That's what he's singing. The Constitutional Court of South Africa finds that a piece of fabric, the old flag of South Africa, is a racist symbol for which you can be jailed if you fly it in public, finds that the song "Kill White People" is not racist. Again, if you think about what racism and genocide actually is, the ANC and the South African government is currently busy exercising a genocide on Afrikaners. There can be no dispute about this because the facts don't lie. All right. Anyways, this thing being broken is really annoying. Well, it's not broken, but I need to screw it in. And I actually need to buy a little extension. I don't know if you can see it. But you get this thing that extends it so that it can actually go in because it doesn't go in far enough. But I've not been able to find that extension. I should actually just go to the music store and get it so that this thing can get in and then stay in. In the same bias, they fought against the gain, power, and influence. No book required, just someone who's not a pathological liar. Left art will do. I would say that Notable Lawyer was being very racist, but I think that people should try and debunk him rather than just expose his racism. So, Jay, well, there's nothing to debunk. It is true that white people have Neanderthal DNA, right? That is true. But that comes as a result of the fact that we know that the Neanderthal did exist and that then it stopped existing. And for a long time, we didn't know where they went. Like, why did they go extinct? We didn't know this. Now we have two theories. The first theory is that at some point in our history, we became advanced enough that we went from being the prey of the Neanderthal to the conqueror of the Neanderthal. Because we do know that the Neanderthal was faster, bigger, stronger, way more adept at hunting, and we were on the menu. They were eating human, so we have that. We sort of been able to piece that together. But at some point that changes, and we clearly conquer them. The other theory is that we just sort of break them out of existence. So at some point there was marriage between main human and Neanderthal. They started sleeping together, and the children from that then emerges as this new species. Not really new species, but it's new. Right, so we know that there is Neanderthal DNA inside the Western man. That's perfectly fine, but it's still human. The problem isn't the fact that he called us Neanderthals. I don't even care about the fact that he called me subhuman, just to be fair. I don't care. That to me, I don't care if someone says racist things. I care about the two-tier system of it. You know, if one person is going to be punished to the absolute maximum extent of the law, then I expect everyone to be punished the same way. The frustration and the illegality of it is when one person just needs to say sorry and the other person's life is destroyed. So there's nothing to debunk, really. The racism isn't him saying that, white people are Neanderthal. It's scientifically incorrect, but he's still allowed to say it. The racism is the second he says white people are subhuman. And that is physically, by textbook definition, what racism is. It is believing that a race is inferior to another based on immutable characteristics. So I can't change the fact that I am white, but according to Notable Lawyer, I am inferior because I am white. Because I somehow have Neanderthal DNA that goes back, hundreds or thousands of years. That is racism. That's textbook. That's literally what racism used to mean, and that is what it still should mean to this day. So that's really the problem that we have in this country. It's a double standard. It's a standard that annoys me. I absolutely agree with you. Modern humanity is theoretically a hybrid of Homo sapien, Neanderthal, and Denisovan. And we don't really know what happened to all of this. We know that Homo sapien is the one that sort of emerged as the victorious gene, but we don't know where all of these others went. We have our theories, but that's sort of the end of the discussion, right? So, anyways, that's just sort of to highlight to you guys what is coming in South Africa, right? And all you need to do is look at the scientific and psychological evidence to know that there's no peaceful solution here. Oh, here's the story. I was completely just scrolling past it. This is the story of the Advocate, by the way. It's Advocate Mkhwebani's foundation. So, Advocate Mkhwebani's foundation lays a formal charge with the FBI and the US DOJ, Department of Justice, alleging Cyril Ramaphosa's money laundering, cross-border smuggling, and hiding of millions in undeclared US dollars at his Phala Phala farm. The ethical public protector wants justice for South Africa. So that's the story that I wanted to tell you guys about earlier, but completely just scrolled past it. This is going to be interesting. Just FYI, I'm just going to throw this in here. And we're now going to talk about Pieter Groenewald and Jordan Neal-Lewis. But yeah, so according to the Parliament, the impeachment committee starts on Monday. Now, Ramaphosa did say that if Parliament doesn't wait for his lawsuit to finish, he's going to be forced to approach the High Court of the Western Cape to force Parliament to stop all investigations into him. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. You know, what exactly is the ANC's, what is Cyril Ramaphosa going to do here? But all right, so let's quickly go and look at this story. So Jordan Neal-Lewis is elected as the DA leader. And I think a lot of people, especially DA people, were probably a little excited for Jordan Neal-Lewis. Most people had their fill of John Steenhuisen. And so for most people, John Steenhuisen could not have left fast enough. So Jordan Neal-Lewis comes in, and I would actually argue for a while, I was actually quite surprised with how principled Jordan Neal-Lewis was. You know, when Cyril Ramaphosa's, when the discussions around his impeachment came up, Jordan Neal-Lewis said they will not protect him. It has to continue, and the investigation has to be done. And if he is guilty, they will vote for impeachment, which I thought, wow, this is really good on him. But anyway, so yesterday, there's an article that comes out, and the article is already incredibly misleading. So the article uses a picture of Minister Groenewald, and it says untraceable. Correctional services cannot locate thousands of absconded parolees. Now, there's a couple of things that you need to know about this. These aren't people who just happened now. This is people, the 29,000 number that Jordan Neal-Lewis will use up there, is from 1991. And this entire story from Amabungani is actually because Pieter Groenewald came out and admitted it. He said this is the problem that they're now dealing with. And then he proposed a solution on how to solve the problem. So first, how to find these parolees, but then also to ensure that parolees don't go missing. And he actually wants to, he's already proposed the legislation to fit every single person that gets released on parole with an anklet, like they have in America, a digital anklet that you have to wear. And this allows the correctional service to track you no matter where you go, right? This is the proposal from Minister Groenewald. So effectively, Minister Groenewald identified a problem in his own ministry, and he has already started doing work to try and solve the problem of his ministry. So here comes Jordan Neal-Lewis, and he says, nearly 28, first, big red light, right? Breaking, danger. Nearly 28,000 parolees are untraceable, gone missing. Many of these are violent criminals now walking free, putting the public at risk. Pieter Groenewald Groenewald must not hide behind excuses. He must act today to find these parolees, bring them back before the law, and hold every official accountable who allowed them to disappear. The DA will not accept a system where criminals roam free and communities are left to pay the price. A DA led government will implement electronic monitoring, proper supervision, and real accountability. This is literally what Groenewald suggested. Jordan Lewis is effectively making the case, based on this post, that Groenewald is out of his depth, doesn't know what he's doing. He's a useless minister. Now, let's just quickly talk about the facts. Right now, Pieter Groenewald is perhaps the only minister in the government that isn't making a giant cock-up of his entire ministry. Right? Darity, how you doing? Deskew, how you doing? He's the only guy that's kind of doing his work, doing his job. Kind of doing his job. Everyone else is just sort of stumbling through it. You look at the DA ministers. They are terrible beyond belief. John Steenhuisen has made such a mess of the foot and mouth disease. And again, we'll get to that. I'll talk to you guys in a second about the people who's now protecting the DA. But the DA could literally not throw stones at this point because their own ministries is a mess where they govern. At least Groenewald is trying to fix the problem. Anyways, so Groenewald actually responds to him and says, Jordan, the 29K is since 1991. I stated in public that I'm in a process of electronic bracelets for parolees. In other words, this is already in process. We're already doing it. There is progress. I had a parole summit last year, September, on the revision of the parole system. We are busy with legislative amendments. Don't practice cheap politics. And what I truly appreciate from Mr. Groenewald, he doesn't mention the DA ministers, right? He could literally have come back here and he could have said, John Steenhuisen, look at what he's doing with foot and mouth. He could literally have come out swinging against Leon Schreiber or against that McPherson character. He doesn't do any of that. Pieter Groenewald speaks to the case that Jordan Lewis raised, and he says, don't practice cheap politics. Everything that you're suggesting, I'm in the process of doing. I'm fixing the problem. I know what the problem is. I'm the one who told you that this is the problem. Why are you now trying to score points that doesn't exist for you? And so I truly appreciate that from Pieter Groenewald. He doesn't play that game. Jordan Lewis, incapable of just taking the L, then doubles down and says, you held a summit? ? Exclamation mark. 28,000 parolees, many of them convicted of violent offenses, are missing on your watch. They're not missing on his watch. They were missing when he came on watch. That's not his fault, right? And when he says he held a parolee summit, what else are you supposed to do? You have a parolee problem. You have to get all of the experts in the same place and start discussing how do we fix this problem, right? Because contrary to popular belief, most ministers aren't experts in the fields that they minister in. They need to get all of their experts together to try and figure out how can this problem be solved best, because a minister is at best just a manager. That's all a minister does. They manage all of the people under them who's supposed to come up with the answers. And this is what Pieter Groenewald is doing. But Jordan Lewis doubles down. And you want the victims of murderers and rapists who reoffend because you've done nothing to find these criminals for 2 years to be grateful that you held a talk shop? Like, my dude. In my opinion, Vut, how you doing, sir? Jock, how you doing? The level of arrogance, but also dishonesty that Jordan Hill Lewis displays here, in my opinion, is absolutely criminal. It is disgusting. What Jordan Hill Lewis should have done here, because Pieter Groenewald did not criticize the DA. He did not go after the DA ministers. He didn't attack anyone. He just corrected John Neil Lewis, explained the situation, and that was it. Saying that we are in the process. What do you want us to do next? What should we do best? John Neil Lewis does not take that and then rise to the occasion to go, oh, well, Peter, okay, that makes sense. Let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. If there's any way in which we can be of help, maybe just discussing things, I'll be happy to jump in. Right? That would have been an amazing period of time watching as parties that are in the GNU decide to work together to try and fix a problem that is here in South Africa. Peter Groenewald takes the high road. John Neil Lewis takes the low road. He wants to score political points. And we all know why he's trying to score these political points. The DA is in trouble. And I don't mean with the electorate. The DA is actually doing phenomenally well. They just won a by-election off of the ANC for the first time ever in an all-black ward. But I actually think that the fact that the DA is doing as well has more to do with people just being fed up with the ANC than it has to do with people loving the DA. Right? Most people just don't know who else to vote for. If you're a black person in South Africa, you're probably very few black people are going to vote for the Freedom Front Plus. Let's be honest. I'm sure there's some. I've actually met some black people who not only vote for the Freedom Front Plus, but actually work for the Freedom Front Plus because they believe in what the Freedom Front Plus stands for. So that does happen, but most black people aren't going to vote for them. So I think a lot of black people are voting begrudgingly. But that still doesn't change the fact that John Neil Lewis, whatever goodwill he may have gotten from me, that's gone. I have no goodwill left for the man because this to me genuinely is just cheap politics. Just 100% cheap politics. But then, of course, Ryan Coetzee, who is a DA stooge, says the FF Plus now reaping what it likes to sow. Guys, I've been following South African politics for a while now. When's the last time you guys saw the Freedom Front Plus throwing stones at political parties other than the ANC and the EFF? It's very rare that you see the Freedom Front Plus get involved in cheap party politics. They sort of do their thing. They have their opinions on things. They'll criticize where criticism is necessary. But according to Ryan Coetzee, the Freedom Front Plus acts like this all the time. So they're just reaping what they're sowing. I'm not entirely sure how. Groenewald didn't at all criticize the DA ministers or attack the DA for their terrible handling of their ministerial positions. But apparently this is, according at least to them, this is how it should be, or this is what the EFF deserves. And then, let me show you what Gareth van Onselen had the following to say. I love these people that think 400 tweets means something. Clearly, spelling is not for Gareth. The DA will be driving this issue on a massive basis in the real world. Just drown the market with comms on it. When will people learn Twitter is just not how you decide political strategy? So, effectively, what Gareth is saying here, the DA will lie, and it will lie in the real world as well. That's what Gareth is saying. Because it is a lie. Jordan Lewis is just plainly lying. And according to Gareth, this is just politics. It's how it works. We in the DA will lie openly, honestly, all the time. And I don't mean they'll lie honestly. They'll honestly lie all the time. Do you guys now understand why I'm not a fan of the DA? Why I think the DA is a very dangerous party? Every single time I think, okay, maybe the DA isn't that bad, right? Maybe there's something that can be saved from this DA. I'm reminded of just how wrong I am. What South Africa needs at this very moment in time is for parties like the Freedom Front and the DA to fight together. This is what we need. We need a united front because the ANC, the EFF, and the MK are coming. It's going to happen. There's nothing that you or I can ever do about it. It is coming. And instead of doing that, the DA seems hell bent on attacking the Freedom Front. And I know why. You see, the DA has to do their very best to prove to their new voters they are not right wing. Remember, Freedom Front is a conservative party. Jordan Neal Lewis and the DA have and look, I get from a political standpoint that this is perfect politics. It really is. Uh, One of the things that the DA has suffered to do for a long time is win black votes. Right? Most black people fell for the lie that the ANC told that should a white party ever govern in South Africa, apartheid will be back. And then the DA came into government, and rightfully so, a lot of black people saw what the DA was doing. They went, but they're not asking for apartheid back. They're not trying to bring back apartheid. They just seem to have, good ideas for the most part. They're doing their jobs, not great, but they're doing their jobs. And lucky for the DA, the ANC ministers are so absolutely useless that, you would have to really try hard to be worse than the ANC ministers. Um, and so that works, right? And so black people are now looking at the DA. And I think a lot of black people are also looking at the Freedom Front Plus and saying, maybe they won't bring back apartheid. Maybe we're fine. Um, but this also now means that for the DA, they no longer really need the white vote. Remember, the DA had to fight for the white vote because they got very little black voters. But they don't have to worry about that anymore. If you look at how the DA has been surging, some of the polls now have the DA sitting close to 35 to 39%. In a lot of the provinces, the DA looks to be very close to 40%, if not over 40%. And obviously in the Western Cape, the DA sits pretty still. You have the election that was just won in the ward in Gauteng, which is the first time the DA has been able to kick the ANC's ass in an all black ward. These are massive things, right? And these are things that's happened in very recent terms. And so you can imagine from the DA's perspective, these are the voters that they now need to start courting. But those voters are not going to vote for the DA if they for a moment think that the DA is a right-wing party. So I'm just talking now from the perspective, if I was the DA strategy analyst, I would probably tell Jordan Neal Lewis to do the exact same thing. You don't need the white vote anymore. We need the black vote. And in order to get the majority black vote, we need to go more left. Here is where they make the mistake. Because it's the same mistake that Musi Maimane made. See, Musi Maimane came into the DA and decided to go more left than what most DA voters are. If you guys remember, Musi had a wild couple of months in the DA where he would say like very leftist things that he wanted to do. And a lot of people were like, whoa, we're centrists, right? The DA is mostly made up of center-left voters, but they're not really super far left-wing. The DA is very left-wing, but the voters are not so much. Right? The voters are sort of left, but center mostly. So Jordan Neal Lewis is I believe, now trying to go after that new demographic, the socialist black voter that is so sick and tired of the ANC and that just wants a party that can work. And so, from this perspective, it makes sense. You no longer care about the white vote. Let the white people go vote for the Freedom Front Plus. Those people who think you're too far left, let them go to the Freedom Front Plus. You want the vote that is a little bit further to the left than the voters that you had. Almost always in politics, when this happens, it backfires extremely badly in the long run, because those voters who did not support you tend not to continue supporting you, right? Because they're not supporting you because they like you; they're supporting you because they hate the other guy, and that doesn't build loyalty. That's just sort of, I'll vote for you until there's a new alternative. The voters that you're now losing because you're trying to appease the ones further to the left, they leave and they never come back because you've just crushed whatever loyalty they had toward you. And ultimately, it almost always leads to a complete eradication of the party that tried to do this in the first place. There's multiple parties in Europe, the Conservatives in the Tories in Britain. That's exactly what happened to them. When the Tories got into power, they thought to themselves, okay, well, we have the conservative white people. Let's see if we can get all the lefties to also vote for us. The problem was the lefties don't trust the Tories, and now the conservatives no longer trust the Tories. And what happened to the Conservative Party in the UK? It's dying. It's a dying party. It's on its way out. The DA runs the risk. I'm not saying they will, right? But they do run the risk of that potentially happening to them as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then there's one more story um, that I wanted to share with you guys. Oh, I'll just show you guys this because this is funny. The ANC slams the DA government over deeply concerning conditions at Khayelitsha Clinic. That's rich. Oh man, politics is such a dirty business, man. Hey, imagine being part of the ANC, right? This is a party that has destroyed South Africa's clinics and hospitals on an unbelievable scale. And this party thinks that it has the ability or the wherewithal, uh, the right to criticize any other party. Like that just to me, it beggars belief. I found that super funny. Um, what was the other story I wanted to share with you guys? Mm, I know there was another story I wanted to share. I can't. I don't know where it is now. Anyways, what did we miss? What did we not talk about, guys? Is there anything that I've missed that you guys might maybe want to talk about, or that I should know about that I don't know about? Um, this is where you guys need to speak now. I think we've covered everything. Oh, the Ramoya, but we've done the Lamola. The man is a moron. The mainland bombing. Wait, what? Wait, what? Hold on. Mainland bombing. What are you talking about, bro? CR, give me a second here. I just quickly want to. What we know so far about the device that blew up in mainland Woolies. Wait, what? Explosive safety expert Jimmy Root has weighed in on the blast inside a Woolworths store in Mainland Park shopping center this week. A bomb blast inside Woolworths store at Mainland Park shopping center has renewed concerns about explosive threats in public spaces, with explosive expert Jimmy Root warning that even a relatively small device can disrupt operations and place workers at risk. No crap, bro. Ruud, who reviewed photographs of the aftermath circulating in the public domain, said the visible damage did not appear consistent with what would normally be expected from a substantial high explosive detonation. There is limited structural damage. Shelves remain standing with no evidence of major structural collapse or blown out fixtures. Products appear to have been knocked off shelves, with many items remaining largely intact. There is also no visible charring, burning, or melting of packaging that would typically be present in a higher order detonation or incendiary device. All right. South African Police Service investigators are probing an incident in which an unknown device detonated on a shelf inside the Woolworths store at the Pretoria Shopping Centre at around 1 a.m. on Thursday. 5 workers were reportedly in the store at the time, but no injuries were sustained. Damage was limited to shelving and food products. Wait, at 1 a.m. on a Thursday? Why would there be people working inside Woolworths at 1 a.m. on a Thursday? Is this a 24-hour Woolies? I'm sorry, but what if this just turns out to be like a vape? Someone was vaping and their vape exploded. Or could be stock taking, right? Well, yeah, maybe cleaners. That's possible. Yeah, I mean, you look at these pictures, nothing's burnt. Uh, Yeah, like literally nothing is burnt here. Doesn't look like anything. Doesn't look, quite frankly, it doesn't really look like an explosion. It looks more like something just created a lot of force and then, sort of knocked things around. Oh yeah, Jock. Vapes explode rarely, but they can. So I've seen pictures of people with like 3 or 4 of their fingers blown off because the vape exploded in their hand. It's usually because people are doing stupid things with their vape, but it can happen. Yeah. Um, there was another one at the Bloemfontein in Woolies. No, wait, what? No, dude, what? Um, I can't use 2 hands to type. This sucks. Oh wow, I just saw it. Another explosion hit second Woolworth store in South Africa. Oh crap. Okay, that another Woolworth store in South Africa has been hit by an explosive device, with an incident reported at a branch in Bloemfontein in the early hours of Friday, 29 May. The explosion at the Woolworth store at Prilla Square Shopping Centre marks the second such incident involving the retailer in less than 48 hours, following a blast at Menlyn Park Shopping Centre in Pretoria on Thursday morning. In a statement, Prilla Square management confirmed that an incident had occurred at the Woolworths premises and said emergency responders reacted quickly. Prilla Square Shopping Centre confirms that an incident occurred. Emergency services and the South African Police Service responded promptly to the scene, and the matter is currently under official investigation. As the investigation remains ongoing, no further information can be disclosed at this stage. We are pleased to confirm that no injuries or major damage resulted from this incident. Following the necessary assessments conducted by the relevant authorities, Prilla Square has been declared safe and the centre has been reopened to the public. Management would like to thank SAPS, emergency personnel, tenants, and patrons for their cooperation and support. Hawk spokesperson, Warrant Officer Fikisha Matoti, said the incident took place at around 3 a.m. in the morning. So all of this in the mornings. Do you guys think this might be? I'm just gonna throw this out here, and I don't want people to stop panicking. Right? Don't stop panicking, people. I'm just asking a question. You know how sometimes what terrorists will do is they'll have a couple of dry runs to see how quickly does the police respond, how fast does things happen. Matty, how you doing, sir? Stuff like that, right? So they're sort of they're doing a couple of dry runs in order to figure out what can they do. So when this happens, how are things going to happen? Could it be something like that? Because the fact that it's twice and both of them happen inside Woolworths suggests one of two things here. First, there's some appliance in Woolworths that is highly defective because it keeps this exploding, specifically in the morning hours. Or did Woolworths do anything offensive? Wait, isn't Woolworths on like proudly Israeli or something like that? Which shopping giant is like proudly pro-Israel? Is that Woolies? Bandit, that is the other thing I was thinking of. The fact that they're detonating in the middle of the night suggests that these people aren't trying to kill people, right? They're trying to hurt Woolies as a brand more. Trying to take over Woolworths? Derek, that could also be a thing, right? What aisles were the explosions in? Were the same things in both aisles in both stores? Shanta, not that they're answering here, at least from what I can tell. And they don't seem to have pictures here of this explosion. At least not in this article. They don't have pictures. This is the one from mainland. Yeah, no. I don't know. Serial bombers? Oh man. That is some gentle comedy right there, CR. Apolitical and softly pro-Palestine to avoid boycotts. Essentially, they've already been bullied into supporting the left quietly. Oh, right. That makes sense. Last time it was the Rice Krispies, snack crackle kaboom. Oh man, yeah, you guys are pulling out all the stops on the gentle comedy right now, like the EFF with Pep. Yeah, I just don't quite understand this. Like none of this makes sense. Like if this was a terror campaign, the point of terror is to actually blow people up, right? You need to kill people so that you can force terror into the hearts of people. Just blowing up sort of in the middle of the night, it might scare some people who will now be afraid to go on. No, Jock. So the one in mainland happened earlier in the week, and then the one at Bloemfontein, I think, happened literally today. Or this morning, I guess. How many effing ads is YouTube going to squeeze on? James, I do apologize. I don't know what YouTube is playing at. I do apologize. All right, what other stories, guys, before I get going? Because I still have to make some food. I'm going out again tonight. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Your Devilette, take care of yourself. Cost him a day of operations and some business from fear. Saying that's sort of the actually, you know what? Whoever suggested that, I can't remember now, but someone here said that's probably what it is. Oh, it was Bandit. Bandit, you're probably spot on. Because the timing doesn't make sense for it to be terror. But if you're trying to get people to be afraid of going into Woolworths, that's a good way to do it, right? Because I know that the shop close to my house has a Woolworths, and I'm immediately thinking maybe I shouldn't go into the Woolworths. I don't ever go to the Woolworths, but still, right? Now, if I do want to go to the Woolworths, I'll be going, maybe not. And then if I do go, I'll be avoiding the cereal aisle, like seriously. So yeah, it might just be someone that's trying to push nonsense onto Woolies. Even terror attacks don't work anymore in SA. Cost them a day of operations. Funny how the ANC starts losing badly, bombs start exploding. Well, the DA hold power in the Western Cape, considering they are charging such high rates and taxes just to pay for the low-cost housing. Black Peeps now. Any other colored voting for PA? Stephen, so the DA will continue to win because, yes, the rates and taxes are astronomical. And yes, it is destructive. But the Cape works. And as much as I don't like the DA, I have to give them that. The Cape works. I was amazed when I first moved here from Pretoria. When roads have potholes in them, they get fixed. And I mean quick, right? Um, the street lamps. You will constantly see teams replacing street lamps if they're out, putting in new street lamps. Um, the roads look beautiful. Every single morning you go to the beach, there are cleaners on the beach picking up the trash, cleaning the sidewalks, emptying the bins. Uh, it works. And for that reason, people will continue to vote DA because it works. People can absorb a lot of taxes, right? You have to really push taxes before people reach the point where they just go, I can't pay this. This is nuts. Short of that, people will absorb it. They'll be like, well, you know what? It works. And because it works, I'll pay it, right? It's not great, but every single week on a Monday, my trash gets removed. Every week. And I mean, it can be public holiday. It can be in the middle of a December holiday. Doesn't matter when it is. Every single Monday at about 8 o'clock to 8:30, the truck stops. It removes the trash. And I know I don't have to worry about it. When I see a pothole, when I see something broken down, when I see a street lamp out, when I see a drain blocked, I know that within a couple of hours, I'm going to see someone there to fix it. Potholes sometimes not that fast, but they do fix them. So that sort of makes people feel like fine, you know? Do you think the Cape is what gives the impression there is no white genocide in SA? YouTube handle, how you doing, bro? I think the Western Cape creates a lot of false impressions for a lot of people, right? I don't think when people say they come to South Africa or they're gonna come to South Africa and they come to Cape Town, they're really coming to South Africa. Let's be clear about that. You're not coming to South Africa, you're coming to Cape Town. And anyone that has ever been anywhere other than Cape Town in South Africa knows that Cape Town and South Africa is in the same place. It just isn't. Um, but no, I think the reason a lot of people think that there isn't a genocide in South Africa is because most people don't know what genocide means. We had this discussion a little earlier in the stream, um, and I won't rehash it, but genocide isn't just the mass murder bit, right? But most people don't know that. And I don't blame people for it because words have power. And so when you hear the word genocide, your immediate thought is the Holocaust, right? With 7 million Jews killed systematically as quickly as possible. Or you see Hotel Rwanda with millions killed in one night, right? Those are devastations and they're mass murder events that form part of a genocide. Most people don't understand that those events didn't happen in a bubble. Those events didn't just happen overnight. It's not like, on Monday morning, all of the Hutus and the Tutsis woke up and they loved each other. And by evening time, mass murder. That's not how that happened. It took years of propaganda and indoctrination to get the people to the point where mass murder felt normal, felt okay. It's just what needs to happen, you know? So I would argue that's the reason why most people think that there isn't a white genocide in South Africa. Um, and I'll give you guys a great bit of evidence for why there is an actual genocide in South Africa. Farm murders is a huge problem here, a massive problem in South Africa. And I don't want anyone to get bogged down by left wing narratives. In real terms, in terms of the amount of people killed, yes, white farmers are not the highest number of people killed in this country. There's about 27,000 murders every single year, and a fraction of those are white people, and a fraction of those are white farmers. But that's not how crime statistics work. When you do crime statistics, you don't look at absolute numbers. Actually, when you do statistics, you don't look at absolute numbers because absolute numbers aren't helpful. So let me use a great example. You guys remember a few years ago, there were all these narratives about how the police in the United States are super racist, and they kill black people just like as soon as they see a black suspect, they just start shooting. You guys remember that narrative? Well, the narrative isn't based on reality when you look at the statistics. Because statistically speaking, in terms of how often people come into contact or into altercations with cops, the rate to which black people are killed and white people are killed in their altercations with cops, white people are killed far easier. So police are far more likely to shoot a white guy that broke the law than they are to shoot a black guy. That's point number one. Point number two is that black people are actually, in relation to their population size, not killed more than white people. White people are killed more by the police than black people are. But narratives sadly don't care about it. So in South Africa, when you actually look at the number of white farmers that exist in relation to every other population group. So, for example, if we wanted to do murder statistics, you guys would agree with me that if I live in a white suburb, let's say I live in Mainland in Pretoria, okay? Would it be helpful to compare the crime stats of Mainland to the crime stats of Khayelitsha? Would that be helpful at all in figuring out how to fight crime? Because remember, that's what crime statistics are all about. We want to figure out how do we fight crime. Those are two places that are not comparable to one another. You have to compare Khayelitsha to other gang areas in the country to figure out what kind of crime there is, right? In the same way, when you look at the amount of white farmers that is being killed, it's not helpful to just look at the number, which is just over or under 50 farmers a year based on the year. That's not helpful because in relation to all other groups in the country, there are far fewer white farmers. And when we do the numbers, which is usually how police statistics are done, 2 out of 100,000, right? So now we're doing statistics. Out of 100,000 people, being a white farmer in South Africa is the most dangerous job in the world. Statistically speaking. That suggests there's something wrong here. Something isn't working. And then when you have a government that spends more resources trying to pretend like this isn't true than they actually spend on trying to fight the crime, that tells me that there is something going on here. Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong. If the government admits, guys, okay, white farmers are being targeted more than any other group, this is a problem. We're going to set up a special task force to stop white farm murders or farm murders just in general. Great. It's not your fault that farmers are being murdered, right? If it is just murder, that's not your fault. But as the government, it is your job to fix it, to fight it. But if your government is spending all of its resources trying to deny that the crime is even happening, even though the crime is absolutely happening, what is that? If it's not genocide, what is it? Why is the government so desperately trying to pretend like something that is happening isn't happening? You know, I don't support any human political group. They are all compromised on every level. That's not wrong. WF Seeley, how you doing, bro? Ek moes lankal vir my vrou gesê ek nodig Danger Pay, maar sy hoor my nie. I've been noticing lately certain live streams, or maybe all live streams, I am able to view. Why, Charles? What's wrong? You're making the case against AfriForum? Derek, how? How am I making the case against AfriForum? The eagerness to copy the agrarian revolution of Zimbabwe is a bit perplexing. Michael, it's not perplexing if you understand how communism works. We had this conversation a few days ago. I think it was on Tuesday where we had this conversation. So what you need to understand is that every single communist revolution is stage 2 of Karl Marx's 3-stage communist utopia system. Stage 1, violent revolution. Stage 2, figure out how the hell to get to stage 3. Because Karl Marx never actually explains how you get to stage 3. So every single one of these revolutions try different things in the attempt to get to the stage 3. Not really. None of them want to get to stage 3. What they want is them having all the power and the country sort of working. That's the dream. The problem is they can't actually figure that out. So it's not that they want to completely copy what Zimbabwe did with the same results. They are thinking they can do it better. So they've already identified what they believe Zimbabwe's mistakes were, and now they're fixing it. So, for example, look at how desperately they're trying to change the constitution of South Africa so that they're allowed to expropriate without compensation. Their belief now is that it's not that Zimbabwe took the farms that made the world angry, it's that there was violence. It's that it was vigilante groups that just went in and took a bunch of farms. That's what scared people. So the thinking now is, well, what if we just don't do that? What if we do it organized like? This is the Constitution of South Africa, and as the government, we are upholding the Constitution of South Africa. Then maybe the world won't get spooked. Maybe the world will be fine, So they're just trying a different approach. Same result, but different approach. Seem to grasp that they need to eat, that they too need to eat. Oh, but they don't believe that they won't be eating, Michael. Body cams in this country will be switched off on purpose and then sold. It'll not even be switched off. It'll be sold. If you gave our police officers body cams, those police officers are having a nice barbecue at the end of that month. No cam, but barbecue, yes. Yeah, so that will not work. John, how you doing, sir? Has anyone actually realized that democracy has been used as a vehicle for tyranny? Eon, yes. It's one of the reasons I hate democracy. I'm not a fan. I believe democracy to be the most evil of governance systems, and I really mean that. You see, I have a sort of strange respect for dictatorships because at least they're honest. Dictators don't pretend to care about their people, they're just dictators. Democracy gives you dictators that then pretend like they're not dictators, even though they are. Because in every democracy on earth, there is at least 50% of the people that are living under a government that they did not vote for and having to adhere to rules that they did not support. So for me, democracy is just evil. I do not have time for it. I do not respect it. I believe it to be just terribly inept and completely devoid of anything that is workable. I I'm a The older I get, the more a fan I am of a king, a monarchy, um, because if you read the history of monarchies, monarchs were for the most part actually quite good. Uh, because in order to be the king, you had to keep the people happy because you understood that the people are the ones fighting in your army, and if the people are not happy with you, they'll kill you. Um, and you see it. Most evil kings don't live long; they get removed very quickly. Um, so yeah, I do sort of like that as a system, or just a system that gives the power to the people as much as possible. I'm also happy with. Doesn't work in Africa. It has been proven. It allows huge mass management under black rule. So, Lida, you're not wrong, but you're also not entirely right. Let me tell you this. There isn't a single governmental style that will ever work in Africa. Ever. So the big problem with Africa is that Africa as a continent makes no sense. Africa shouldn't exist. Um, you can't have that many cultures in one country and ask for it to work. You look at every country in Africa and you can see that it was Europeans just sort of drawing lines. And I don't mean anything bad for the Europeans here. They were more advanced. They wanted to figure out whose land is whose, and they drew lines, right, based on negotiations. But those lines do not serve the people who live in them. Because I mean, there's African countries where on the one side of the border lives a tribe, and on the other side of the border lives the same tribe. Like these are the same people, they speak the exact same language, but because of a line that isn't even there, they now live in two different countries. That can't work. So effectively, um, that's going to have to be rectified. I think Africa is probably going to end up with far more countries than what it has at the moment. It's going to have to splinter. Africa is actually the perfect place for federalism. A federal system would work so well here because then every culture can take care of itself and they don't have to worry about the government, doing things that they don't like. Are we ever going to get there? Will Africa ever wake up to this reality? I doubt it. You would love King wait, Sejong of South Korea. He developed a written language to help the people. Oh, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to go. It has been lovely to hang out with all of you on this Friday, but we have now been busy for over 2 hours. And the only reason I don't want to go for longer is every single time I do a stream of 2 hours, there are people in the comment section that goes, "What the hell are you doing?" Right? Because I get it. A lot of people don't want to watch something that's 2 hours long. And a lot of people just immediately feel like this is insane. I have to watch for 2 hours to get you to hear what the point is. But on Fridays, I do like hanging out a little bit longer with all of you because it's fun. I like this. Even though today I had to hold my mic in my hand. I know how to say David Nia. I've already cut my hair. No, I'm gonna go make food. I have sausage and susati. So I'm gonna have sausage and susati. That's what I'm gonna eat now. And then I'm probably gonna see what stories pop up for videos and such. Um, and then I'm going out tonight for coffee to a friend of mine. Um, we're enjoying this. Tiger Snakes, how you doing, sir? I truly appreciate all of you coming out and hanging out and spending time with me. Like it's absolutely my pleasure to be here with all of you, to live stream for you. I want to give a massive shout out to everyone that supports this channel for the super chat. Let me just make sure that I didn't miss anyone. Massive shout out to Dacenput for becoming a citizen of the Republic. Mark Magic for the 35 Rand donation. Echo for the 350 Rand donation. I truly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for, funding the channel, funding the content. And ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend. Those of you that might be going away for the weekend, be safe on the roads. If you're struggling with money, like most of us, and you're just going to be riding with Jan Thijsplace Kariki, then enjoy, have fun, have a good barbecue, whatever you're doing, or a braai. No, sorry guys. I say barbecue because I think about American barbecue, and then I say barbecue. But if you're gonna go braai, go have fun. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'll see all of you in the next one. Peace.